2 years ago, I decided to take a little break away from Weekly Shonen Jump. For every story I was reading at the time, I would finish the ongoing arc and put them down one by one, with the last being Akane Banashi's. When you kept up with the big stars during the era of leak culture on top of a good majority of the magazine and then engaged in a lot of community discussion, the exhaustion can certainly creep up on you. There were plenty of other things out there for me to read from other corners of the medium, and it gave me some time to reflect on growing up with the magazine. My final MHA video emphasized the highs and lows through the lens of experiencing one of those stars, but it also set me to not rush to get back to the hype. Shonen is always gonna be here, and I knew that when I came back to it all, I'd pace myself and just enjoy things on my own. A quieter change of pace, one that is much more enjoyable than weekly discourse. And I gotta admit that from the two stories I chose to read in this new era, it's clear that the magazine is in just fine hands. When MHA and JJK ended back to back, a lot of folks, including myself, were wondering what would manage to take the place and stake in the magazine looking ahead. So far, I've come to enjoy both Shinobi Undercover and Kagurabachi. Been eyeing these on the side for different reasons, and of course, one's more in the global eye than the other, but to start, it'd probably be better to introduce something more under the radar. Given I know a lot of people haven't read it, let's start by answering the question of what is Shinobi Undercover. To start, we're pulling back into a weekly story in a world of ninjas. Classic hand-to-hand combat, squad setups, ninjutsu, powerful bloodlines, all that good stuff that Naruto was known to pump out over the course of its run. Written by Ippon Takeguchi and the art by Santa Mitarashi, this action comedy is filling the gap that Yozakura Family opened up upon its finishing. In this story, ninja operate as a public safety force, out of sight and in the interest of protecting the peace. Our main character Yodaka is one of the strongest around, and yet he's considered a normal person as he comes from no ninja family. He has a comedically massive amount of strength, and when it comes to the mission, he is the definition of a locked-in drone. When he's focused on the task at hand, it's practically impossible for him to fail, especially with his monstrous capability, but where there is a powerful upside, the downsides are quite personal. For starters, the kid sucks with human interaction, and secondly, he's borderline incapable of multitasking, hence my drone comment. These two downsides tend to be where the comedy comes in, as the operator that leads Yodaka through his earpiece has to get him through not mentally exhausting himself. Lots of antics going on in that head of his that makes way to the surface, and in turn, his insane strength opens up doors to display insane feats that you'd see in something like Sakamoto days. Tossing tiny objects as hard as kunais, doing something so precise and yet in an instant, things like that. Now, unlike Love is War's narrator, who tends to be in the background, the operator is that active voice in his ear that not only helps the humor land, but also assists in the world building in the story, despite still not even seeing their character quite yet. In fact, we may not ever, but together they get by just right. The plot is a mission of a lifetime, a bodyguard mission for our woman lead, Aoi Mukai. Codenamed The Assignment, she is to be guarded without ever knowing that she is being so, hence the undercover part of the title. Doesn't help that she's a klutz, making her susceptible to danger, but her bond with Yodaka is one of the charming parts of their relationship. She connects with Yodaka's humanity and allows him to grow as a person, and in turn allows her to enjoy her high school life given the restrictions for her safety. It's a case of the ultimate weapon granting her the ultimate freedom, as Yodaka is able to protect her daily life. Alongside him, we have three other ninja that lead to the creation of Squad 9 who tag along in this mission. You got Hibari, who refuses to run from a fade, Umineko, the most reliable one on the team, and Suzume, who ended up being one of the more surprising characters for me, as she fits the role Yodaka cannot, albeit quite the charmer that has some amusing teasing moments given they love romance. Together, they undertake the mission and protect Aoi from antagonists known as fugitive ninja, those who have abandoned the system and gone rogue to do their own thing, with a focus on Aoi, as it's not being revealed initially as to why she needs to be guarded in the first place. Keeping it vague here in case you all get interested to read. The squad mates have major respect for Yodaka given his abilities as a ninja plus reputation in the ninja world, and his kindness inspires their growth respectively, on top of confronting their own personal baggage looking at their origins related to some of the prominent families. In turn, Yodaka no longer has to bear the loneliness that comes with being the strongest. Had to toss that one in there for the JJK fans out there, I know it moves y'all. He's finally being able to explore parts of himself that a ninja wouldn't be able to normally do. What's interesting here is that Yodaka isn't the team leader, but rather that role falls to Suzume. He tends to take on the hardest of opponents or biggest of walls given his immense capability, plus it's not like he's one to lead either. It's something that only he can do too, given he's a one-on-one beast. Suzume, in my opinion, is the second strongest person on the team, and with her abilities, she leads Hibari and Umineko to clear the path so Yodaka can focus. In terms of matchups, this is one of the aspects I like about the action, as you can bounce back between them and get either the rest of the cast doing their thing or the main character getting his big moments without feeling like either are being sidelined for the sake of giving each other relevancy. Everyone's got a role to play and no short ends of the stick are dished out. Now with the foundation established, the fights in the power system are where things really get quite fun down the line, especially in the chapter 30 to 40s range. Early on, it felt like the series was going to be one of the types where it's a lot of big moves or big hits dished out constantly. I gotta give Mitsudashi some credit because they certainly have a high output when it comes to spreads and color pages. While initially that was the case as Yodaka tended to take the main fugitives on, the story does evolve to squad-based combat, which I absolutely love. It can be a bit chaotic as anybody in the vicinity can attack one another and each squad has great synergy with each other. Everybody is constantly capitalizing on openings based on their strengths, and there is a good constant flow of movement through it all. Plus, the environment is constantly changing depending on the space, which keeps the views fresh. I especially like when Suzume takes the lead and creates momentum for Hibari and Umineko to work off of. One of the arcs has Squad 9 facing off against another allied squad, and it's by far some of the best stuff in the series. Lots of hand-to-hand and physical exchange, and the teamwork is truly so fun to engage with that it kinda sparks the same enjoyment I get when I read World Trigger with the momentum of how things play out. One person going down really alters the momentum, and with each exchange hard fought, you can get a lot out of seeing a ninja's dedication to the mission. Now the power system is where the fights take a tier up and add some of that special battle shonen sauce to the pot. There are two main things to note that certain ninja from special families have: the kakais and their ninpo or jutsus if we're keeping it simple. The kakais are special characteristics that vary among the ninja families. Personal abilities that influence individual fighting styles that range from controlling elements to your body becoming a weapon. They spice up the battles given they can make a shinobi 1v3 under the right circumstances and lead to some pretty great spreads throughout the fights. It creates room for challenge as those without kakai will have to overcome that wall, and even those with them aren't guaranteed to win. It's all about how you use it and what techniques or aspects are brought out from it, which can still play into the environment looking at the elemental ones. Of course, for Yodaka being a normal person, he lacks one, at least at the moment, and how he makes up for it actually comes from his hand signs. By performing them, he conducts the ninja art of mind and soul, which grants him such immense focus that it leads to those insane feats that we see throughout the series. An effective take on something all ninja do, given the hand signs are the basics for ninjutsu. Also reminds me how when we were kids, we tried performing them. We didn't know what the hell we were doing or what the signs meant, but it was cool. Now the ninpo are the application of the kakai. Things get a whole lot more flashier when these start rolling out and truly push the fights to their limit. At least for right now, characters tend to not have that many ninpo, but the main ones are quite powerful and can be the deciding move. I think I prefer it like this because it keeps the hand-to-hand pretty relevant instead of things getting spammy out the gate. And it's a lot more interesting watching people fight with their kakais and unique styles more than anything. And trust me when I say that these characters throw down. Now antagonist-wise, they get better as the story goes on, mainly because it's a group. You don't meet everybody out the gate, but when you start getting to those squads, those are when you're able to take away the narrative info for the long term. There's a larger picture in motion and therefore not a whole lot of ones and dones. The threat spans on both sides of the scale, given with ninja you can't always trust your allies. We still don't have the full picture quite yet, but the one who does have the most late game potential so far is definitely this guy. Kinda reminds me of Togame from Windbreakers, and every time he appears on screen, you know something big is coming. The story is approaching what I feel may be its game changer arc, where things will never be quite the same after the dust settles, and it's something that I hope will challenge the relationship between Yodaka and Aoi. Throughout the story, there is a lot of questions about what happens if Aoi were to find out the truth as to everyone's role in her life, as it's not limited to Yodaka, but all the ninja that have come to befriend her as a person, even though she is their protection assignment. Are the feelings real or fake? Are the bonds easily severable or impenetrable? If Aoi were to find out everything, what will the result be, and how will the truth alter the dynamics of these characters? It's the type of questions Spy X Family fans have been waiting to see Endo capitalize on for years now. But there is a lot of potential here to dive into these thin lines the ninja tread on, and if they ultimately choose Aoi over what judgment comes, how will those in charge react to such a declaration? In a world of deceit, the truth is gonna be the one thing that sets Squad 9 free, and that's something I can get behind. Under 100 chapters, but Shinobi has a very solid momentum going for it, and I think the only major aspect that holds it back is ultimately the subjectivity of comedy. A lot of gags and absurd humor is hit or miss for people, and if you aren't amused by chapter 3, it's definitely a quick drop. I'm not saying you have to get a belly-aching laugh over it, but I do think it can be enjoyable to at least stick through for the main plot, and if anything, just getting to this panel right here is worth it. By far, one of the most incredible panels I've seen, and in context, it's gold. My only hope is that the series doesn't get stuck in adaptation stasis, where it takes 200 plus chapters to get its first season. The more I think about it, almost every studio around right now is booked with either a shonen adaptation or a high-profile anime at the moment among different production lines. But I'm willing to bet that by the 120 to 140 chapter mark, somebody will hopefully be free to add this into the world's eye view. Now, as for Kagurabachi, man, where the f do I begin with this one? So I had the pleasure of seeing episode 1 back at Anime Expo, and let me tell you, it's pretty damn good. There are some great moments I think will get people really excited in episode 1, and the enthusiasm in the room was my signal to go ahead and add this into the lineup. Either I do it now or end up becoming spoiled past season 1, because let's be honest, my video about the unstoppable nature of leaks still continues to be true as Hunter x Hunter is now in that mix. I'll be honest, I respect the Bocce community greatly for cracking down on manga leaks, but I would genuinely be surprised if that remains the case past season 1. For the sake of me getting this video out in a good time frame, I decided to stick to talking about the first 2 arcs only, so please don't be that guy in the comment section. And to put it simply, this is a pretty great story so far. I know the world was memeing on it hard around its first chapter, and others were ragging on it for it giving initial edgy vibes, but it has been so much more than that. Pretty sure there's somebody who made a video on this. This is a very personal story about legacy and all of those who become entangled in the existence of the enchanted blades. And if I were to define arc 1, it would be by the intent of that legacy. What were the blades intended for is a big question Chihiro had to confront, and I think Sojo, being the one who chose a different take on the blade's purpose, put him on a path to become one of the best first arc antagonists that Shonen Jump has had since the likes of Naruto's Zabuza. And I know I'm gonna get crucified for it, but I stand by it. In terms of narrative impact and presence, he gave a lot to think about in this story and challenged Chihiro in a way that you don't see come out the gate for a brand new story like this. I think it's appropriate to call it ambitious for what he accomplishes. It really gives the audience a chance to grow alongside Chihiro, knowing that he's about to have a brand new slate in terms of his understanding of everything. And even then, Sojo stood on business as a wielder too, taking out multiple Kamunabi agents and proving that at the end of the day, despite what it may have been intended for, a sword is a weapon of slaughter. A person who creates such a thing can't just be a hero. There's a certain layer of blackness in their hearts as well, and that blackness is what Sojo chose to represent. Yet on the opposite side of that, Chihiro's journey so far has been protecting the weak as he comes across people who his sword can save. Sure, saved by slaughter, but his whole deal is proving the good that can come from his father's work. And Char was up first to not only become saved, but to give what was left from her mother a better purpose. Which, by the way, before I forget, the image of her in the back fries me, man. That smirk is hilarious. But the deeper the story goes, there are just some things Chihiro's eyes cannot avert, certain truths that he must digest. That for every life that was saved at the end of the Seitei War, there are others whose lives have suffered because of the existence of the enchanted blades, leading the government to create the means to protect society against them. The classic fear of your own creation, and those sins haunt not only Kunishige into death, but now that burden falls to Chihiro to carry on as he tries to get the situation back under control. You got the Kamunabi who wants to keep the swords out of the public, the antagonists who seek to use the swords for their own purposes and perhaps starting a brand new war, and then Chihiro who is doing everything he can to keep the way his father was remembered alive by ridding the evil done by the swords. It's this constant power struggle that can only be solved through action, and the story certainly excels at that part. We have swordsmen all over the medium, but it's been a very long time since a new story based swords as the blood and bone of action with such narrative importance. The way it's all brought to life is just so clean and stylish too, perfect for an anime team with the right minds behind it. I love how the series handles power growth as well, because it takes a step towards reevaluating and understanding the possibilities. For the time point being, I've been introduced to the swords having primary abilities and their own rules. But in order to get around some of the limitations and strain on the body, the story opts to do cool things like bending the foundation towards new creative abilities. It puts more emphasis on the sword users getting creative with the primary functions rather than the constant verge of death power-ups, all while feeling like we're not having insane power jumps. Chihiro's school of Kuros and Sojo using himself as a lightning rod via cloaking is simple but very effective stuff that I like to see. It gives more avenues to tackle certain situations, and combining moves will lead to more unique combinations. Then you got the inner realm aspect with the blade locking in with you, and god man, the day Chihiro masters Enten completely is gonna be insane. Like, I'm just imagining the dialogue. It was this moment that Enten became one with its wielder, and the fandom is gonna explode. It gives you something to look forward to because those instances are where the battles enter a phase that puts on display the true scale of what a clash of enchanted blades look like. Side note, but anybody else really looking forward to seeing how they portray speed in the anime too? Because these characters stay moving quite fast. Which leads me to talking about the famous 12 seconds. One particular aspect I like brought up in a fight is this idea that a fight is a conversation. When two people exchange blows, there's a purpose, a reason that cannot be communicated with words, and so engaging in that conflict is the ongoing conversation. Bachi takes it a step further with giving this cool depiction of Chihiro and Sojo having a snack together. It's giving shape in a metaphorical sense to the conversation, but in real time, we get the deadliest 12 seconds ever, and my goodness man, I was having a great time. The art, the do or die pushing of the bodies to the limit to outpace each other, and the simple reduction of speed at the end to throw off the timing from Chihiro. It was awesome, and it's formatted in a way where I can just picture in my head how it will come to life in the anime. A mere 18 chapters, and all of this gives a lot of first arcs a run for their money, all while going ahead and setting up arc 2 before we even hit chapter 10. They're connected just right. But also, I think we pretty much know how this story has to end based off the conclusion of the fight, and it's that all the swords must go. I believe Chihiro will ultimately be the one to bury his father's legacy in history by destroying all the blades one by one. Again, I only completed 2 arcs, so I may not be cooking here. Please don't confirm it in the comment section, so help me God, but I think there was a time where the blades needed to exist and now they don't. There is no war, they have served their purpose, and breaking the chains of the legacy that Kunishige has on the world is only something that Chihiro can do. Then again, it's just a theory. Now, coming off arc 1, I'm thinking to myself, Hokuzono, how much higher can you get? And going into arc 2, this dude found his zen. I respect the confidence because you can tell he was ready for the Rakuzaichi before arc 1 was finished, and it shows. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I love when stories utilize those types of activities you don't hear about often. We hear about gambling, tournaments, or races, but not a lot of auctions these days in manga. And it's a pretty good idea to integrate into the story, knowing the underworld elements in motion. Arc 2 gave me a lot to work with. The Sazanami family, the genius son who was disowned, the stakes for both Chihiro and the Kamunabi. To secure the Shinoichi, there were quite a few new characters, and some of those got pushed into the spotlight as well. Starting with Hakuri, aka the man who lived up to his potential, unlike another guy I know, was a pretty good parallel to Chihiro. Both of them being kids who wanted to be beloved by their fathers, assisting them in what needed to be done, though not knowing the full gravity of what they were involved in. His story gives him a second shot at life. To be saved by Chihiro inspired him to save those who lost their autonomy. The only thing he needed was somebody to believe that he could reach the heights his father wrote off. It contrasts with how Kushinige believed in Chihiro's words at a very young age, and even now Chihiro is fighting to uphold that. On the other hand, Hiyuki is the government ally we can get down with. There is one thing that her and Chihiro can agree on, and it's doing the right thing first. Sure, they duked it out when they first met, but that reunion had so much sauce. Again, the way it's depicted, you can see the anime doing the back and forth panning as they remove the obstacles in front of them to meet in the middle. There's so many clean blueprints in this manga, I just can't see the adaptation fumbling them. Though I do have to wonder, for her to wield a weapon that rivals the blades, who made it and what type of life has she lived? I'm sure I'll cross that bridge eventually, but this right here reeks of government intervention. Now, the elephants in the room, of course, involving the Hishaku and the Shinoichi. I'll be honest, I expected maybe a big deal or two to pop up here and there, but the leader pulling up in arc 2 is nuts. And what's worse is his intention of wielding the Shinoichi, which based off what I saw, is damn near Satan's blade. I don't know what was going on with Pops when he was making that sword, but I'm kinda concerned. I do appreciate Chihiro's reaction to seeing the leader arrive, because it really does kill the edgy assumption. This entire time, he's had to grit his teeth and stay focused, but more than anything, he loved his dad. He was a kid who had to face the reality of his father's sins too quickly, forcing him to grow up fast. But that choice doesn't exactly mean he got over it. There's so many questions that he needs answers to. Hell, I got questions I need answers to, and the Hishaku's moves will guide him to the truth. The question now is, will he be able to withstand it all? Brief as it was, it left a mark on the arc, and I think the Hishaku being this level of active shows that Bocce definitely won't be a super long story. Calling it now, I'd say 300 chapters or less. Now, as for Kiora, aka Mr. Proceed, I really gotta give it to his dedication to the Rakuzaichi. To me, he's a parallel to Kunishige, given that they were both committed to something beyond them, but there was a difference when it came to their real duty, and that's fatherhood. He came up short in that regard, and it goes to show the poison that can come with trying to maintain a legacy. Cost him not only his child's life, but basically everything, and sometimes it would be better to let it go. Another reason why I think all the swords have to go in the end. He was definitely a different type of obstacle, as getting ahead in this arc came down to an information war. The warehouse subspace situation really had to get Chihiro and Shiba plotting, and I did enjoy such a unique variable. The big brain IQ play of sacrificing Enten but being able to tap into the goldfish's remote view is another cool use of the abilities leading up to the big showdown, and it certainly was a huge team effort. Hakuri on the outside doing his teleports, which, can we please talk about that grenade moment? Unbelievably cool teamwork between the two. Boys were so in sync, they were putting up work across 2 dimensions. Then Hiyuki joins the fray against an activated Shinoichi, which again, some serious issues with this sword. Even crazier that the current master of the sword is able to tap into it remotely and almost overtake the host. Almost like 99% sure Sojo is a victim too. I can't wait to find out what the origin of this sword was in comparison to the others, because something else is clearly inside of it, I just can't prove it yet. This was a really hard fought fight, and in the end, it didn't lose sight of what was important. I personally really look forward to this moment being adapted right here, because despite Chihiro not being a hero, he will do everything in his power to reach out and save who he can, even if it could cost him his life. There's something about a story being enveloped in so much death that will allow the desperation to save a life shine so brightly through it all, especially when Hakuri's own conviction was on the line as well. Maybe it's just the inner MHA fan in me speaking here, but this was some serious heart. It feels even more special when you realize that even Kiora was doing what he could. What started as a physical battle ended up becoming a battle of will for both of them, and when the dust settled, what remained wasn't a puppet for the Shinoichi, but the man Kiora Sazanami finally at rest. Once again, Chihiro proved that his belief was the right one, and in a way, you feel a little bad for Kiora. Had he walked away from this life and invested in his family as people and not merchandise, perhaps they could have been one of the happiest around. It just goes to show you that what you hold on to can also weigh you down, and wherever these swords go, there's bound to be a lot of loss. For now, the curtains come to a close, as this is exactly where I stopped. At the time of this video being uploaded, I'll be pushing into Arc 3. I know I'm late to the party, and I doubt that there is much I can add to the conversation around Kagurabachi that hasn't been said already. So what I will say is that if you can't believe in the hype, if you can't believe in what the anime content creation space is saying because the positive reception is to be expected, then simply take a chance and believe in the potential Hokuzono has as an author. I truly cannot imagine the level of pressure he is under right now coming off of Gege and Horikoshi's absence, but at least from where I'm standing right now, he's not folding under that pressure. I'm sure I'll run into some hiccups, I'm sure I'll run into some questionable writing choices, but the legacy I will walk away with after Kagurabachi's run is what I'm ultimately pursuing, and as it stands, I feel it's worth the pursuit. Both of these stories are worthy works of art to exist in a new era for Weekly Shonen Jump, and from the manga to the anime team, I'm rooting for everybody to come out on top because the world is here for you. That said, it is only 2 stories for me at the moment. I'm not sure if I'll jump on the Ichi the Witch train or pick up stories where I left off. Perhaps I'll be sticking with these 2 for a while, but one thing for certain is that it's nice to be back around the magazine again, and hopefully that feeling won't change anytime soon. Well, I think that'll bring me to the end of this one. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this, this, be sure to proceed to the comment section and let me know all your thoughts. Be well out there until we meet again in the next one.